I love it, thank you.
Okay, so this will be a lot easier then. Was it the Today Show you were on?
Oh my gosh. it
Good
was
Morning
so
America
stressful.
Sunday?
Yes, the
You
Today
did
Show
great.
was so stressful.
So this will be a lot easier than
Yes.
that. All right, so we are officially welcoming you, even though you guys have been chatting. So Jamie Fiore Higgins, Bully Market, My Story of Money and Misogyny at Goldman Sachs. And we are so happy to have you here today. As we all know, it's not the easiest world a lot of times for women to work in. And you've proven that in your very personal account of your life that I know you were hesitant to write.
Yes.
But you did a great job. It's your story, but it's an amazing story. And I know that you've had hundreds of people reaching out to you after, whether they want to admit it or not, to admit that this kind of stuff happened to them too. So we won't make you talk forever, but we would love to hear why you ended up writing the book and a little bit about your background. And I want you to tell them the story about how when you started, when you said you had to, like, whatever, well, all the other kind of shoes everybody there was wearing, and you had to go buy yourself shoes.
Sure.
Because I love that. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here
Oh.
today. We wish we could have given you better weather, but thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. And we met in, I think it was January, at an event at the Ocean County Library. Yeah, so it's so exciting to be here and a little surreal because if you would have told me, 5 years ago I would be doing this, I would have said you were crazy. So my name is Jamie and I am also a Jersey girl, but about an hour and 15 minutes north of here. And I did write a book and it was published last August by Simon & Schuster called Bully Market. Nice smile. Yes, and I definitely was bold because like as you said, the subtitle is My Story of Money and Misogyny at Goldman Sachs. And I worked at Goldman Sachs for 18 years. And in my memoir, I talk about not only what I endured to be successful at Goldman Sachs, but what I perpetuated. So I became a managing director, which in the food chain of Goldman isn't the highest. The highest is partner, but I was the second highest, and it's only for the top 8% of the firm. And the firm, I think right now probably has about 45,000 people, globally. But I was an unlikely hire because I actually wanted to be a social worker. So I went to a small liberal arts college outside of Philadelphia called Bryn Mawr. It was a women's college, very kind of pro. I mean, I joke like right around this time of year we have a celebration called May Day, and like they literally chant "Down with the patriarchy." So it was very ironic that I ended up at a place like Goldman Sachs. But I actually really wanted to be a social worker, and I'll never forget junior year I took one of those personality tests, and they said that's what I should do. And I went home from school. It was the summer before senior year, and I said, I know what I want to do. I want to be a social worker. And my mom said, no way. And I don't blame her. I love my mom dearly, but she grew up in poverty. So they were children of immigrants, grew up in Newark, grew up with nothing. My mom didn't even have plumbing, but through hard work and education kind of pulled themselves out of, the lower class and into the middle class. But the directive was clear for me and my siblings, and it was every generation has to do better. And it was like, we sacrificed for you, and so you have to sacrifice for us. And so it was, you have to get the best paying job possible in the most kind of lucrative industry. And in 1998, that was Wall Street. And from everything I heard, if you were gonna work on Wall Street, you had to work at Goldman Sachs. Like that was the brass ring. And so when my parents told me that, I was disappointed, but I really felt like I owed them because I grew up, I had scoliosis, which I know is kind of a very common ailment, but I had a very uncommon case. So when I was 12, I was told that if I didn't have surgery, my spine had started to compress my heart and lungs. And they're like, if you don't have surgery, you won't see, 14 or 15. And so I spent my childhood, I had spinal surgery, and there was, physical therapy, and they said I might never walk again, and so my parents did everything for me. I mean, taking off time of work, and it was a really expensive procedure. So I really felt like if I did anything, I really owed them. And so to me, getting a job at Goldman was just kind of making my family proud and paying them back. And so I got the job. We were just talking about it. I had like 39 interviews. And that sounds crazy, and it was crazy, but it really solidified the notion that they made you feel like Goldman was so special. You know, not just anyone can get into Goldman. And in fact, on my first day at work, they said it is harder to get into Goldman Sachs than it is to get into Harvard. And it's true, actually, if you look at the numbers of applicants versus roles. And it really made me feel like, wow, I am so, so lucky to be here. But you had said, you know, I showed up on my first day at Goldman in a suit from TJ Maxx and shoes from Payless because my mom had only bought me, in fact, when I was interviewing, I only had one interview suit from TJ Maxx. And in my last couple days of interviews, they had invited me back for a second day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have another suit. And so my mom took me to Marshall's, and I had a navy blue suit, but I got a black suit. But you know, all from, you know, TJ Maxx and Payless or Loehmann's. I'm dating myself, but Loehmann's was a great place. Loehmann's. And my shoes from, you know, Famous Footwear and Payless. And when I got there, felt like I was in a different world, because so many of the people who were hired, I wasn't the only one certainly, but the majority of the new hires were either children of Goldman partners or children of Goldman clients. And it was like they kind of spoke a different language, like they grew up in this affluence where their parents, you know, their parents funded their apartments in Soho, and I was commuting 2 hours a day on New Jersey Transit, you know, to save money for my family. So I was a little intimidated, and they definitely made me feel like, you know, the other. And I remember them saying, oh, Jamie, you don't know a stock from a rock. I mean, a lot of these kids, you know, they had been managing their own stock portfolio since they were like 12 or 13, you know, and I literally knew nothing about Wall Street. I literally bought like Wall Street for Dummies and was like reading it cover to cover. And I was intimidated, but I was so proud to be there. And you know, I'll never forget it's not like we were materialistic people at all. My grandmother lived with us, and she grew up through the Depression, and it was like money wasn't about things. It was about safety, it was about security, it was about education. And so even though I felt a bit of an outsider, I was just so determined to succeed and make my family proud. You know, I'll never forget when I got my job offer, my dad was just like, oh my gosh, like Goldman Sachs, like it was just something to really be proud of. And so, you know, I wasn't a dummy. I mean, I graduated with a bachelor's in mathematics, so I had a really good head for numbers, and I had such a strong work ethic, especially growing up with my scoliosis. You know, a lot of people said, like I had said earlier, you're never gonna walk, or you might run again, but you'll never be super active. And I realized I have a bit of a personality flaw still to this day. Like, there's nothing I want to do more than prove people wrong about me. So when someone says I can't do something, it's like, oh, no, you're going to watch me. Even when I wrote...
That's not a personality.
Well, yeah, meaning I should just say, you know, but it was like, you know, even when I was writing a book, I'll never forget one of my brother's friends was like, it's impossible to get published. And I was like, oh, just watch me. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. So it's like I really have a lot of that kind of grit and determination. In fact, one of my last interviews at Goldman, I was ironically in the business I eventually worked for, and I was a math major, and people love that. So it's like all these kind of bros would kind of throw these math problems at me. And my second to last day, they threw the Monty Hall problem. That's that probability problem that it's, you know Monty Hall, remember, like, let's make a deal, and you have 3 choices. And if they show you door number 1 and it was a go and you chose door number 2, like, does the probability change? And it actually does. And so the answer is, you know, your odds go to 2/3. And they asked me the problem, and I said, actually, yes, if you change, your odds are 2/3. And they're like, no, it's 50-50. And I said, no, I don't mean to be disrespectful, because that certainly didn't seem to be the way you get a job. But the thing I always loved about math was 2 + 2 was always 4. Whether you were the richest person in the world or not, or powerful or not, it's math. And so I said, I really, please, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree. The answer is 2/3. And I'll never forget, they the woman walked me out and said, it is not good, because it was a Goldman partner. And they said, you don't want to, disagree with the Goldman partner. That was really disrespectful. And I said, well, I'm really sorry, but I just know the number. And so I went home. I only had that blue suit. My mom took me to Marshall's to get a black one. And I called my math professor, and her name was Rhonda Hughes. And actually, we reconnected. I'm going to be seeing her next week because it's my 25th graduation anniversary reunion at Bryn Mawr. And I said, Professor Hughes, and she goes, Jamie, you know what the answer is. So I went to the library, I got a book on probability, I wrote up a proof, I made photocopies, I faxed her the answer. She's like, it's completely correct. And I, the next day, showed up at the Goldman offices at 6 a.m. and I put the proof on all the people's desks that told me I was wrong. And they never said anything, but I got the job the next day. And that was when I had told you ladies earlier that my grandmother at the time, who at that time was, oh my gosh, my grandma was 98, she was born in 05, so she was like 93. And I said, Grandma, I got the job. And she was like, but Jamie, they have just, you've just been through the ringer. Like, they were so rude, they didn't believe you, they discounted you. Why would you want to work there? And I said, but Grandma, it's the job everybody wants, and I'm gonna make so much money. Like, my first year I was making like 6 figures. And she said, I know it's a lot of money, Jamie, but what is it gonna cost you? And that was kind of that seed of wisdom. And sadly, she died, within a year of me working, but I always kind of kept that with me. So anyway, fast forward, I got my job at Goldman, this kid in her TJ Maxx suit, and everyone's saying you can't do it, but I was like, no, just watch me. And I was really good, and I got success early on because I was smart, and I worked really hard. But what I really realized that in order to be successful, you had to do those things, but what you really had to do was keep your mouth shut and look the other way. And so what I realized over time, that promotions and paydays were kind of dangled in front of me in exchange for my silence. So as I endured things and I spoke up about them, I was told kind of time and time again, well, you could report these things, but it's gonna cost you. And so I shut up. And then as I got promoted and I started making more money, and I was supporting my family of origin, and I was supporting the family I was building with my husband, women would look up to me because I was this like poster child. Like, I was like, wow, Jamie can do it, we all can do it. And they would come to me and say, so-and-so's making me feel uncomfortable. And so-and-so, makes me stay late and rubs my shoulders and, wants to mentor me over dinner. And I would speak up for them. And my partner would say, okay, well, you can complain, but, don't you want to be promoted? Don't you want to be paid? And so what I found is, over time, in order to be successful, I had to constantly go against my values and like who I was. And doing that over time, it really eats at you. And, I started getting into really bad habits, and I'll never forget, after September 11, I got a prescription for Xanax because I was so afraid to go back to work. And I used to take it once in a while, and then I started taking them like Tic Tacs, just to kind of get through the day because it was so stressful.
How long after September 11th did you have to go back in the office? Because it was right there.
Yeah, so September 11th was a Tuesday, and the markets were closed.
Yeah.
So we really didn't go back. I actually had to go into our Jersey City office for a few days at the end of the week, that first week. But then when the markets opened, we were back that next Monday.
Oh, you were?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it was like another world. Kind of growing up, I remembered seeing, like the streets of war-torn Beirut, and there were these like armored vehicles in the streets, and men at every corner like wearing like a sash full of bullets, like and the smell was so bad. And I remember wearing a mask, which is so funny now because you see people wearing masks all the time. I actually bought a gas mask because I was so afraid to go back. I carried a gas mask, like a real Army Navy gas mask, in my bag for like 5 years, and because I was working on the 48th floor, and I remember like looking for like individual parachutes, but they didn't make them. It was just like anything.